Welcome.
Don't do anything to embarrass me. We have
Stay
a beautiful, classy guest. I'm very worried about you.
All right. Welcome to Stand Up Memories.
So far, so good.
I am Peter Bales, and this is Jackie the Joke Man Martling, and we are honored to have the one, the only Barbara Feldon with us tonight.
Wow.
From stage, screen, television, modeling, and an author of a book I want to get right into. This.
Both of us.
Barbara,
both of us read it cover to cover.
We read it and loved it. And
tell the audience the name of the book.
The book is called Getting Smarter, a great title, and it is well titled, actually, because you know so much more now than you knew back when you were so young, and all those things happened. Now, before we're going to give you the floor, but I want to tell you how this book, do you mind a moment of privilege?
Please.
I finished this book last night, and it is such a privilege to be able to talk to the author in person via Zoom the next day. I finished the book, and
I finished it yesterday morning.
Okay, you beat me. Now, after I finished the book, about 20 minutes goes by, and my wife comes out of the room where she's watching television and says to me, "What are you doing? Why are you stomping around the house?" And I said, "I'm not stomping around the house." She goes, "You're stomping around the house. What are you doing?" "Well, I just finished the Barbara Feldon book." "Why are you?" I said, all right, I'll tell you why. Because her parents were so similar to my parents, and I don't know how to. I literally was reliving issues I had with my parents because you painted such a vivid picture of, and you said waspish family in the suburbs of Pittsburgh. I mean, this book touched me on so many levels, and it caused me unconsciously. Your book caused me to stomp around the house.
That's great.
But that's what you bared your soul. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in a million years. You didn't hold back. You bared your soul. Thank you for sharing. And is that what you started out to do? Bare your soul like that?
No, I started out because I thought I had a good story to tell with my husband, Lucien, the kind of the exciting Frenchman that I married, who was like movie star handsome. And I found out 2 years after I married him that not one single thing about him that I knew was true. I was married to a total stranger. And it was, from then on, it was just this incredible adventure. I didn't know at the time that what I was living wasn't real. I was living an alternate life with an undercover spy for the CIA. I thought I was being trailed by the KGB. And it was just an upside down world. But also, as you know from finishing the book, I do not regret one single thing about that relationship because it was such an incredibly exciting time in my life.
That was such a nice thing to read at the end, because there's no way to know if you're going to say, I rue the day I met that guy, and you were just so thankful for the adventure. I mean, we're old. We've all had people that you've met, and then you find out after however long, 5 minutes or 5 months or 5 years, you realize they've been lying about everything the whole time. And it sends such a chill up your spine, because it's like peeling off an onion. And to go through that and go through it with you was just fascinating, you know.
Well, you know, you could say he was a psychopathic personality, but psychopaths apparently, as you read, are born with the conscience part of the brain is not fully, fully developed. So they can be extraordinarily charming, and if they're also good looking, They can be amazingly successful in life, but they have no conscience. And so it seemed to me at the end of the book, looking back on it and looking at how well my life turned out, it was just one really colorful few years in a life that I'm very happy to have had. And it was sort of unfair that if that is the case with sociopaths, that they were fated to be who they are. They were born that way. And probably that conspiring with he was a refugee during the Second World War, it was inevitable that he would be who he was. But there's something about people in life who offer something that lifts us above the ordinary, so that we're not just repeating things. People who are adventuresome, I've been so fortunate in my life to have several in my life like that they bring you to another level. They open doors for you. I mean, traveling with Lucien, the way we traveled, I would never have done that on my own. And so I just thought it would be fun to share the story of this young girl who comes to New York for a career, but also to find romance and adventure, and finds it. I mean, really in space.
It just jumps off the page that you were enjoying almost every minute the whole way. I mean, we all have our ups and downs and our slam doors, but it's just, the way you just let it all hang out was just fantastic.
But we don't all have, your word, a sociopath who completely misleads us in the beginning. And it is huge, when I was reading, that you stayed with him. Not many people would have done that. And then I don't want to give away the book. Well, there's no way to give away the book because there's so much in it.
Right.
But, in the end, you have magnanimity, you have forgiveness, you realize that even with all the issues, the gambling and the lies, he had a positive. He was so smart and so articulate. And so,
it's almost like the scale of justice, and is the good outweighed the bad, and you're along for the ride, and what the hell, right?
Yes. Also, I played my part. I was looking for this romantic dream, and there were lots of red flags along the way, and I chose not to see them because it was wrecking the story. So I hung in there, trying to make sense out of this, kind of crazy life we had. And it ultimately, it led me into therapy for myself. He went to therapy too. That's why I stayed with him. It didn't last too long, but I was hopeful. And it led me into therapy too, to understand why I would persist in, as many of us do, in a romantic situation, to not look at the facts, to not, my dad saw it right away. And
I was going to ask you, how did your father know?
He had him pegged from the first, when he sat down to dinner, your father had assessed the whole thing correctly.
And
yes.
Is it because your father was younger once and he knew guys are guys? Did your father have, what do you think about that to this day?
My dad, my dad was so intelligent, and he also was a little on the cynical side. And so that it was easy for him to, to realize this was a little too much. He was a little too smart. He knew a little too much about too many things, which really was that Lucien knew a little bit about everything.
And you were also starting off with, this is your father, and this is a guy showing up who's going to date your daughter, which is always awkward from square one for everybody. So, it was like, but the way he nailed it is just,
Yeah.
Barbara,
Later, many years later, I mean, many years later, decades later, after I left Lucien, my dad said to me one day, looking back, without mentioning Lucien, he said, looking back, is that I imagine there are things that you would have done differently in your life, or that you would, that you regret doing. And honestly, I didn't even know what he was talking about because I didn't regret it at all. I didn't even
wow.
get his, I mean, wasps, I don't know. Are you a wasp? I mean,
Yeah, we are,
Now,
but
I was going to say, you talk about your WASP upbringing hit home with me because affection was unspoken. Just you said it. It was unspoken. It was unshowon, but
you didn't
assumed.
even know you were missing it because it didn't
No,
exist.
but I mean, I wish it was shown, and
Yeah.
I think you just now I don't mean to be your therapist, but I read your book, so now I'm your.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about your phobias and where they came from, and I believe in the book you identify very early in life with your father being away, like a Willy Loman for a time,
Yeah.
and your mother being away when she had to take care of your father being sick. That was the genesis. It's much
Yes.
more complicated than this, but that was truly the genesis of these phobias that it sounds like you've had great success in conquering, but it took a long time.
It, as you know, I mean, I don't know if it takes many years to understand and then to let go of the symptoms. But yes, I was vulnerable to men like Lucien because I was so in need of love. And not that my parents didn't love me, it was understood that they loved me. But as you said, it was never demonstrated. We were never touched. So, of course, when romance came into my life and I was actually physically touched, I would, of course, get addicted to that and not want to let go of it, and confuse sex with love and not have much discernment. So in certainly in my therapy, the central core of it was dependency. It was trying to feel secure. And
Wow.
and my parents were good people, as you probably
They
got that
were,
information.
without a doubt.
But it's the culture, it's the WASP culture.
In the 50s, like there was no such thing as parents in my family, parents hugging or kissing. And I remember when I finally got to like 7th grade and moved a couple, started hanging out with people a couple miles away, which at the time seemed so far away. The next biggest town was Oyster Bay. And one of my first friends was this guy, Mike Iacobelli, and went to his house, and he's an Italian. And we walked in and he's hugging his mother and hugging his father, and they're all hugging. I almost felt like I was in a foreign country. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just, wow. Does that really happen?
Yeah.
I probably hugged his mother 30 times more than I ever touched my mother ever.
All right. I can handle this. You have worked very, bravo, worked very hard in therapy, and it pays off. I'm 100%. And you said in the book how great therapy is.
Yeah.
And way to go. And you figured it out hard. That was not easy. You had to relive it. You had to figure it out. That is hard work. This book was hard work. And so wonderful. And I know what I wanted to say to the men watching right now. Read this book. Women, of course, are going to love this book. I read it and I understand. I'm trying to understand women still. I'm an older guy now. I'm still trying to understand women.
Well, don't hold your breath.
Well, maybe I never, no, but I mean, there you are, so young in the city in the 50s, and you had this upbringing, and you used the word naive. You were naive, and people took advantage of you. And you first of all, $35 for an apartment in Manhattan. Wow.
Yeah, you do get stuck on that paragraph for a while.
I go, wait a second. Wait, 61st Street. I mean, wow. But think of the changes the 50s. I am old enough to remember hippies. You remember beatniks. I don't have a handle. You knew beatniks, right? You wore
I was a little late to the party. I wished I had been a beatnik, and I was it was sort of a leftover thing, but I did get the turtleneck black, wearing black.
Yes.
I was looking for bongo drums, but they were pretty much gone by then.
Were you ever in a Greenwich Village club where they did poetry and at the end of the poem they snapped their fingers instead of applauding?
Oh, really? No, I never
Yes.
experienced that. I didn't have the nerve to go in. I was so impressed by them. And I have that in the book. I would just look in the window of those coffee shops with those long-haired girls, and I was sure they were discussing.
Right, you envy, and then one day you wound up sitting in one of those tables and said, "Wow, I'm one of those people now." Right?
Yeah, the White Horse Tavern.
Yes, right.
Now, and
But as comics, reading about, you're on Rowan and Martin and you're with Ernie Kovacs. I mean, those things, after you had your success and were basking in it, you had so many great adventures. Like I don't know about him. I'm sure him too. We're drooling, I mean, the Ernie Kovacs show, that is early comedy. That's just,
he's a genius. He's just incredible, Ernie Kovacs. Isaac Newton said, "I have stood upon the shoulders of giants," and comedians need to say the same thing about people like Ernie Kovacs, who you work with, and you work with Sid Caesar. Do you remember these guys? Were you aware at the time that they were geniuses?
I never had watched much TV, so I wasn't all that impressed. I mean, I knew they were famous, but I saw shows, maybe a piece of it one time. And so when I met him was many years after that, of course. And honestly, these people to me were just human beings, and they were either nice or they weren't nice. They were either, how when you meet somebody, you get the whole person, and luckily I wasn't a fan like that because I didn't know their work that much.
Right, so you weren't tongue-tied or starstruck or anything.
No. And so when I worked with Sid Caesar, there he was, this dear presence, this dear sweetheart of a man, and he just touched my heart. So that was my relationship to him, was just relishing the person,
Wow.
And I worked with comics who were super, super, super famous, and it was like, get me out of here, just bored with their antics, and just because they're famous, it didn't mean anything to me.
But I know somebody who made you shake on the set, and he launched your career, and his name is George C. Scott. You
Oh my God.
Yourself
oh my
shaking.
God. Yes, that I was impressed with that.
Wow.
I was like, how do I act with him? Oh my God, George Scott. And he was so kind. And, yes, he rattled me because George, I mean, I knew his wife, Colleen, and I'd had dinner with the two of them once, but I don't think I even looked at him. I was so intimidated. George, though, when you think of encountering a whole human, he had this power. He had this energy, this something mysterious and possibly explosive and marvelous and scary.
You just think of him as Patton.
Scary.
Yes.
How come he didn't find a role for you in Patton? I mean, I get in a tank. If he was really a friend, he would have.
He could have slapped my face instead of the soldier. I'd have been happy.
But every level you went to, you did the job. I mean, you don't think you got stuff you didn't deserve. You deserved it every inch of the way, right?
You know, I was fortunate. And once I had a successful series, the network would just place me, because wherever the stars are of those series, they want them to be seen other places as well.
Right.
So it's like getting on a conveyor belt. And if you can find the way to get on, and being in a successful series is the entry. So you step on it, and then you just surrender. And if somebody told me that I was going to have to, do sketches with Dean Martin, who was also a big dear, I mean, what a sweetheart.
Ah.
A fortune teller said, "Here are the people you're going to work with." I don't know how I could have faced it. I'd have been so scared.
Wow.
But when it comes one at a time, just as in life, and there is a warm human being there, you notice if they're kind or they're not kind, or, it's so, I don't know how you feel about this, but when you meet a new person, like someone walks in the room, do you get a sense of the whole thing right then? The whole picture, and that it doesn't much change after you talk or get to know other things about it. It just complicates it a little. But that as human beings, we somehow connect with other human beings instantaneously. What do you think about that?
Well, who? My answer would be sometimes. Who for you did you immediately respond to that way?
There were just so many in my life, and I just noticed throughout life that what I got on that first impact with the person really never changed.
I've always found out that your initial gut feeling about somebody is almost always right, and sometimes, very rarely, it's not. But sometimes you meet somebody, and something just isn't right. And I'm like, I don't know if I like this person. And sometimes you get surprised and you like them. And there's other people you meet that you like so much, and then you find out you were way off. But for the most part, I would say 95% of the time, the first read you get is usually pretty right on. It just seems to be,
Yeah, I think that we have that capacity for communication. And that we just don't have the language for it, or the way to, maybe in the future sometime they'll be able to, discern that there are wavelengths between people. It'll be a science. But I don't know how we got off on this.
It's an interesting topic. I love it. It is now the stuff of science fiction, but one day it might not be. But with Lucien, your first impression was not.
Explain to the audience that.
No, this is okay. The core of this book.
No, explain to the audience who Lucien was.
He pronounced his name Lucien, right?
Lucien. Yeah.
Oh, Lucien.
That's better than I'll.
My father pronounced it Lucy-Anne.
Did he really? Lucien. It was French, ultimately Belgium.
The magic man that she met.
Yes, the magic man that she met. You're going to see when you read the book, and everybody should read this book, was a fraud. And you have adventures with him and accept that's a betrayal. And yet, at the end of your life, you're in such a good place and able to forgive when other people. And at the end of the book, I'm wondering, could I forgive like that? Could I ever bear my soul? Some of the things in here are wonderfully embarrassing to you. I mean, you share embarrassments and tough spots you were in, and you also share some wonder. You had such a life. And I think you should keep. I think I thought of a title for your next book, okay. More than 99. Isn't that a great title?
Yeah,
You better not stop writing. I love it. And there's so much to say. I'm really a history guy as well. You're there at the end of the 50s, and then you're there as the 60s begin, and you're there when Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, comes out and begins to change things.
The whole ride.
And
the
you
whole
were there
ride.
for the whole ride. You've seen, the 50s when a Cold War spy was actually almost believable. And then the 60s when, things begin so slowly to change for women. And you do realize, I don't know if you read.
And you were in a magic sitcom during a magic time.
And I told myself before this interview, don't turn into a fanboy, even though you are a fanboy when it comes to Get Smart and Don Adams. We are two guys, we are of our generation. That was a great show. And you're nice. You've probably all your life had, I hope people don't interrupt your meals and restaurants and want to talk to 99. But
first of all, not anymore. They've pretty much forgotten.
No, I haven't, and I know a lot of people who have.
Plus, you have your bodyguard, Buddy Mantilla, always.
Buddy Mantilla.
Buddy sends his regards.
We owe him. He was on the show, and he was great. And I didn't believe him when he said he thought you would do the show, and we're so thrilled.
Buddy, right before we went on to do the show, he goes, I don't remember really many of those stories from the old days. Then we go on, and he lights up like crazy with all. You got to see his episode,
just like a candle.
Just like a candle. We started, and he's like a candle lighting up with these great stories. And I saw immediately the dedication to the book for Buddy, and that's beautiful. That's just nice.
Yeah, he's my gift in life for sure.
Well, and you hit the lottery in life, and you dropped a hint in your book. I was fascinated, obviously, by the stuff about Get Smart and how, on air with Don Adams, you were so close, and yet during the actual filming, he was the star, and you were,
the skirt.
The skirt, yeah, but you were much more than the skirt. And if I read comments online about. There are people who say, there weren't many roles like that for women back then. And you were the only one on the show who understood what was going on. And you stand with great straight people like Dick Smothers. You mentioned how the Smothers Brothers was important, and that show was important, and it really affected me. On it, for goodness sake. That incredible show.
They were marvelous.
And so, you were breaking ground. And, and I know probably that was really hard work, Get Smart. It was probably, I know you said it was in the book, long hours, hard work. Does you kind of forget about that and remember the good times as you go put time between Get Smart, the original Get Smart, and now?
Yeah, we've all worked on shows that are really hard work, but are so rewarding. But you could actually get tired just reading, what you're going through. Like all of a sudden, it's time to start taping at 8:30 in the morning, but you've been going since 6 o'clock. You know what I mean? You get tired just reading that.
The biggest challenge, in my opinion, the biggest challenge in doing a series, or doing a movie for that matter, is the waiting, the boredom. That's the biggest challenge. When you're actually in action, that is joy. You're just waiting for those shots. But in the course of a day doing Get Smart, we maybe did 6 pages a day, and a script page is, just a little dialogue in the middle.
Just wait now. It's like, whoa,
So it was really the waiting, but Don's energy was just like a shot of adrenaline, the minute he opened his mouth. And, you know, I can't take credit for 99 being sort of a front runner of the possibilities for women as the women's movement began to unfold. And that was strictly Mel Brooks and Buck Henry. And I was not nearly as evolved or confident as Agent 99 was. And they put that character in me, you know, and so I was just inhabiting her, but I was not that enlightened yet. I became later.
But you still did the job.
Yeah, you wore that
And-
skin perfectly.
Yeah, and you were perfect for the role. And this is what you gave a hint in your book, that, you know, Don was the star, and I understand that, and busy, and you didn't get to know him actually that well during this original
No.
series. But then you said later in life you got to be really good friends, and I'm going, what?
That's great.
How great is that?
Circling back like that is wonderful.
Yeah, it's interesting. When the show ended, we didn't know it was going to end, and I got a call from the network. It was then on CBS, and the guy said, you know, I'm so sorry, we're not going to do the next season. And I said, fine. I was really ready to move on anyway. And Don didn't call me. I didn't call Don. That was just the end. I mean, he got a phone call, I got a phone call, and we never saw each other.
That was a real shocker in the book. I mean, they like literally pulled the rug out from under the show. Like all of a sudden, boom, it was over. That was the end.
Yeah, but I don't think, you know, it's like the show was not, you know, a powerhouse at that time. So I don't think anyone was very shocked. It had already been dropped by NBC the year before and picked up by CBS. So when it went 1 year with CBS, and so I don't think anybody was saying, "Oh my God, this is really out of the blue." No,
It wasn't such a shock.
No, it was in the blue for sure.
And later on,
Then after, and Don and I doubt if he gave me much thought after that, or I did him. And then we did television movie of Get Smart, Get Smart Again, or something, I forget. And when we saw each other, it was as though seeing your long lost lover. I mean, it was just like, oh my God, it's you, it's you. And it was so sweet and easy and full of love. And I think that those seeds were planted during those early years and then just kind of germinated over time, unbeknownst to us. And at the end, I just loved him. And I know he loved me. And it was dear.
how great is that? How great is that? And that's kind of going full circle, just like your book goes full circle. At the end, you seem comfortable with who you are, where you are, not LA. You're a New York City girl.
Yeah.
Probably Pittsburgh is a nice place to visit, but you are New York City through and through. That you said that in your book.
Yeah.
You're right where you want to be,
And
doing
you've got-
exactly
and
what
you've
you want to
got
do.
Wonderful friends, Buddy, and many others, I'm sure. And this book just tells such a story. It talks. It's about the history of the 50s and then the changes in the 60s and into the 70s and what women have to deal with that many men like me. I mean, we may know it intellectually, but we don't feel it. And this book made me feel it. What an accomplishment.
If
I love
it means anything, this is the first time in probably 30 years that I sat down and read an entire book in 2 days. So that's got to mean something.
I am really
I just don't have the attention span to do that. And it was like more. It was great. So
I mean, it was going into another world. It was going into the past, coming up to the all right.
yeah, no.
Men and women, The book is called Getting Smarter, and the name of your publisher is Stewart Hall Books, New York. Listen, it's easy. Go on Amazon, just Google Barbara Feldon or Getting Smarter, order the book. It comes in the next day. That's the world we live in today.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. And
thank you for doing
know-
that show. Thank you for doing our show. Thank you for leading the incredible life you've led. And we really appreciate you.
And you know what? I thought about how I was going to sign off this show. And oh no, you sound like a fanboy. But I thought about it and I go, no, it's true, so I'm going to say it. You are a national treasure. You have graced our show and added class and dignity and wonderful stories. And thank you, Barbara Feldon, for being on our show.
All right, I'm going to get rid of all the class.
What do you do?
Goodbye.
No, it's the other end. It's the other
No,
end.
wait a minute.
please.
You're not allowed to go yet. No, I get to say something too.
Ah,
I have never had an interview with two lovelier people. And I haven't had an interview about this book where the people who were talking to me had really attended to it to the extent you have. And I cannot tell you how touched I am and grateful. And I wish I could give you both a big hug right through the screen. And thank you so, so much. This has been just the sweetest thing. Thank you.
Certainly our pleasure.
yeah. And I've never teared up on Stand-Up Memories before. No, I got something in my eye. I'm a man. I can't tear up. Well, back in the old
Crying.
no. Back in the old days, I couldn't. But you've seen it all. You've gone from the old days to the present and shared that journey with us.
I can't do this podcast with you anymore.
I know I'm a sentimental, but it's real.
Barbara, thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank
And
you.
Give our hugs to Buddy.
Give a hug to
Bill.
Buddy. And
That was a pretty good episode.
A new episode every Wednesday with me, Peter Bales, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, comedians, interesting people. Leave a comment. We'll get what am I saying?
I don't know.
We're gonna get back to you. We will respond to your comment.
Standupmemories.com. If you go there, it shows all the different
All
platforms.
Spotify, we're on everything.
Every Wednesday.
Stand Up Memories,
Every Wednesday.
a new episode.